State mandated financial education programs are lacking in many areas. One of the biggest is their ability to quantify actual outcomes. Now, most states that have financial education program mandates don't require any type of testing. Those that do, all I've seen is content knowledge tests, typically multiple choice or true and false. They're not doing any other types of measurements. And with personal finance, other measurements are critical. I'll cover what those measurements are. But first, I want to give you an example. Let's say we're teaching students a class on credit. If I'm focused just on content knowledge gains, they may be able to select from a true and false that, hey, 800 is a good credit score. They may be able to pick out the three different credit bureaus. And they may understand and be able to answer this question right that you should pay your bills on time to maintain a good credit. Okay, information, but I would rather graduate a student that feels confident in their ability to access their credit report, that has set up systems and calendars to review their credit at set times, that knows how to analyze the data that comes back from that credit report, that knows the action steps to take if there's anything off, and that has systems in place to protect their credit, like automated bill pay and maybe some identity theft protection service. That's what I would prefer to see. Now, ideally, they would have both, but the fact is the school mandates are missing the other key measures that would provide me indication that they would be confident in their abilities to make good credit decisions and have the system processes in place that will help them do so. Here, I'm going to cover a few measures that I think are more important than content knowledge. Some might be pretty close, but more important. In fact, I would put content knowledge, if I had to choose, I'd put content knowledge down toward the bottom and many of these other measures more up toward the top. One of my favorite is a stage of change assessment, typically done via surveys. It's modeled off the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, but basically says, hey, there's various types of learners. Some people don't want to learn. Some people are procrastinating. Some people are in the action stage. And this is a really critical assessment to take throughout the training. First, it can show progress in their interest to learn, their willingness to adopt new positive behaviors. And as an educator, that's how I like to segment my class too. Those people that don't want to learn, I'm segmenting because I'm going to teach them completely different. I'm going to focus on reason development and nurturing them to a point that's raising them up on that stage of change, right? Those in the action stage, we're diving into real world projects right away and we're going at good speed, right? So I'm going to segment my audience, but a problem with schools, they don't have that luxury. They lump everybody into one class. Doesn't matter what level you're at, you're lumped there. And there's not a real way to segment that audience. But that provides really great data. If we have a classroom of people that have no interest in learning and they end up in that action stage, actually taking steps to improve their finances or build that foundation, I would consider that a much more successful class than if somebody memorized 800's a good credit score. Sentiment, another key measure. Sentiment is really confidence and other factors as well, but that's one of the key ones. And I could tell you from my time in financial services, I dealt with a lot of people that had good knowledge on the financial markets, investing, and so forth. But I also saw those same people crumble when it came down to making decisions when markets were moving against them. They did not have that confidence to execute and they weren't making the proper decisions. They went really emotional instead of staying logical. So it's important we're measuring the confidence levels of students to be able to execute these things. Because if they know information, but they don't feel the confidence to actually put that into action, there's a key missing piece, right? Yes, you can pass a test, but now do you feel confident enough to do it? So let's say somebody moves out on their own and the bill comes, right? What do they do? How do they pay that? Do they have that confidence to be able to do that? Or maybe they were overcharged. Do they have the confidence to pick up the phone and say, hey, cable company, what is this extra charge? That confidence goes a long way when it comes to personal finance. So that's another key measure, and we can track that at the start. during and after. So let's say we're doing a class on moving out on your own. How confident are you on moving out on your own? Scale 1 to 5. Where did they start? At the end, 1 to 5, where are you at? And we can even do longer term measures on that after the class concludes to really get some good data on into the longevity of our lessons. Next, I like to measure behavior changes. So have they changed or adopted any new positive financial behaviors since the class started? A simple question like, since the class started, have you made any adjustments to how you spend your money or whatever we're training on there? Have they made any behavior adjustments? That's really key. Now, all the ones I just mentioned are subject to participant bias, meaning oftentimes you'll get skewed data simply because they want to show you they're progressing. Maybe they like you as an educator. Maybe they just don't want to be embarrassed that they haven't progressed, or maybe they think their peers are progressing faster than them. So it's all subject a little bit to survey taker bias. So the next measures are really critical to also include in there because this is more empirical data that we can measure and track. Things like systems. This is one of my favorite, especially for those building their foundation. So since they started the class, have they established any systems? Maybe it's opening their bank account. Maybe it is setting up their automated bill pay. Maybe it is completing a financial calendar to help remind them of upcoming events. Maybe it's just reminders set up on their desktop to check their bills at set times of the year, right? Systems is something empirical that we can measure, screenshots and other things. Now, it's important when we are monitoring systems, we're cognizant that they're not turning in anything with personal data. That is important, right? So be a little cautious there. Another one similar to systems is team, right? Are they starting to establish team members that will help them? Maybe they just got their first job and tax time's coming up and they don't know what to do. Did they find a tax planner? Maybe it's they want to learn more about real estate investing. Have they found trusted people online that they can continue their education from? Those team members are important. Maybe they're planning on going to college and they want to meet with a student counselor. Hey, do they have people they can talk to in the student loan department, student counseling department, etc. That will be trusted team members that can help provide guidance. Team members is something also we can measure. That's empirical data as well. Actions, this is important. Since they started the class, have they taken actions? Again, maybe we're teaching a class on budgeting. Did they complete their budget? Is that done? Do they have that in place? What are the actual action steps that they are taking? Again, this is empirical data because we can review that. We can have them turn that in as performative assessments. So we're reviewing that, giving them feedback, but it's demonstrating they've actually taken real world action on what's being taught. Way more important to me than content knowledge gains alone. And then finally, the holy grail of measures is actual outcomes. An outcome would be, let's say we're teaching a class on career planning, where they're creating their resume, they're practicing their interview skills. Now, did they get a job? Did they get a job because of that class? That is an actual outcome. And those are very critical. If we're proving the actual outcomes of the class, that's really what the entire training's about. All those other measures are good indicators. It's good they're taking action, developing behaviors, and so forth. But are we producing some tangible results for them? I think it's a very important measure and something that's very important to track over the long term. With money, sometimes things take a little bit longer, right? They may need to go on 5, 10 interviews, and by that time they may have graduated. But if they did land a job 5 months after, and you're doing follow-ups every, semi-annually, that would be a good data point to track. So again, content knowledge, yeah, I want them to know the content or at least feel confident in their ability to know where to source and get that information if needed. Things that aren't directly, I don't care if they memorize the names of the credit bureaus or things like that, but real important content knowledge, I think is an important factor. But again, I'd weight that well below many of these other measures. And again, schools are absolutely failing on gathering any relevant real data that would show outcomes for students. That's the whole goal of many of our advocacy campaigns is to raise those standards so schools are treating financial education as a core subject, that they're not only a core subject, but they're looking at the unique characteristics and adjusting their typical standard protocol to accommodate this unique subject. Again, your math, science, English, there's not a lot of behaviors, emotions. They haven't seen their parents fight over a math problem before, but they've probably seen their parents fight over money. A lot of people have. So there's a lot more core behaviors. They haven't been exposed to bad math habits their whole life, but they've been exposed to bad money habits by watching any type of music video, all the advertising that happens. So they're very ingrained, highly ingrained habits that form in them. So we need to elevate financial education into a core subject, but also treat it unique and use various measures that actually demonstrate real outcomes. It's the goal of myself, my team, and our advocacy committee to ensure every kid graduates self sufficient and able to make confident financial decisions.